Man, I want to welcome you to the show, Sports Hip Hop with DJ Mad Max, Live 365, iHeartRadio. We have the one and only Eric Nenninger. You may know him from Jeepers Creepers 2, One Day at a Time, Malcolm in the Middle, Mad Men, CSI, NCIS, Big Bang Theory. He's been in so many things, guest spots, and he's here to join me on the show here tonight. And newest with Winning Time with the Lakers
Yeah,
Dynasties. You can catch that right now on HBO. Eric Nenninger, welcome to the show. How's it going, man?
very good, Max. Thanks so much for having me, dude. I love that jersey. I love that hat. That was nice to see you pop up like that.
Yeah, yeah,
Warmed
I'm
my
sure.
heart.
I'm sure that you saw the flyer and you were like, "Oh, look, Pond Scum."
Yeah, exactly. Right away, I was like, I don't know if we're going to be able to agree to do this, man. Max is going to come at me hard.
Oh, no, no, no. But wherever my guest is from, I usually have a hat and a jersey, so I throw it on for my guest. So,
That's very cool. Very
of
cool. I
course. But
appreciate
how you
it.
feeling about the Cardinals this year? First in the NL Central.
Yeah, clinched the Central, dude. I'm excited. I couldn't believe like it was literally just supposed to be, Yadi Molina and Albert Pujols last year, and then possibly Wainwright, and we were just going to take a trip around the bases, and then it turned into a pennant race, and they clinched the Central. And Albert's sitting on 702 right now, I think. They're playing right now, the Pirates, so it might be 703, but I don't know. My boys are all freaking out. Like, we can't believe that like we get more playoff baseball, but just that Albert is contributing. He's not just doing like a home run chase, he's contributing to us winning the Central, and they look good. They're a hot team. I mean, we got to beat the Mets. That's going to be tough.
Yeah. Well, I think that might be easy after this Brave series here. I think it's over.
I don't know. Yeah, the 1-2 for the Mets is scary, man. I don't want to see DeGrom and Scherzer. So, but
Oh,
I also don't want to see the Dodgers either. So,
no, no, the Dodgers are tough, but I think you get past the Mets as we saw this past weekend. They're frauds, and they really are. I'm over them. But I want to get into your life story, man, because I brought you on the show here tonight because growing up when I was younger, I saw you in Jeepers Creepers too, and that was my introduction to your acting career and Malcolm in the Middle, watching the reruns of that show. I know you revisited Malcolm in the Middle during the quarantine with your family.
yeah, I have a 16-year-old son, so he was probably 14 at the time, and he sat down with my 8-year-old daughter, and they binged the entire series because there was nothing to do, and it was just reminded how awesome that show was. It was, I mean, it's great, and it's so goofy, and it's so funny, and it's so heartwarming, and so it was really cool to see it again from start to finish. And I was in season 2 and 3, so Dad pops up for a little bit, but then they just keep watching, and they enjoyed it whether I was on it or not. It's a great show.
Something that hit hard to home, I know, right after Jeepers Creepers 2 is when you were released from Malcolm in the Middle.
Yeah, it was an interesting thing. Like, I was a young guy. I was probably 23 at the time. I signed a contract. So for the second season of Malcolm in the Middle, I was just episode to episode. So they would call when they wanted to use me. And then they decided that they wanted me to be available, when they needed me. So they signed you to what's called a series regular contract. And the details of the contract would basically be that I would be in every other episode minimum. That was it. I was done. I was like buying a house. I mean, I was set because Malcolm in the Middle was a hit. I signed a fat contract that had 7 years in front of me laid out, and I was 23. I had no idea how it worked. So I coincidentally was trying to do Jeepers Creepers 2, and the dates, they were worried that Malcolm in the Middle would want me after I did the third season of them. So they call and they're like, we're not really sure what's going on. Agents call people and stuff. And then the creator of the show, whose name is Linwood Boomer, who's a great guy and like set the tone for that show. I was spoiled working on that show because everybody was so genuine and talented and set an example of like what it was like to work in TV. So I guess it got to him that Eric has a movie, potentially. Is he free from Malcolm in the Middle? Well, Linwood knew that the storyline was going to be changing. So he called or had somebody call and say, yeah, Eric's free. Don't let him lose this movie because we're not going to be using him in the next season. So it was this kind of like blessing because I was like, oh, great, I can do this cool horror movie. But at the same time, I didn't quite process that meant that I wasn't going to be on the show anymore. And so it was a bit of a shock because I didn't realize that they can drop your contract. I don't have any hard feelings for Malcolm in the Middle by any means at all. I was just young. I saw, what I had signed. I thought that it was a guarantee, and the storyline changed. And it turns out like if they're not going to use you, they can release you essentially from it. So that was a bit of a blow. But you take it, you learn from it, and you bounce back and keep doing stuff. So I love that show and everybody that's a part of it.
Yeah, Cadet Eric Hanson there.
Yeah, the writers got real creative with the name. Just
Yeah.
Eric. Yeah. It was great, man.
Oh yeah, no, there's some funny scenes there I look back on, especially when you're bringing the laundry in.
Yeah, I was just watching that clip that you put up on Instagram of me. I was watching those Jeepers Creepers 2 clips too with my wife last night, and we hadn't seen that movie in years, man. I appreciate you putting that together. I was rewatching them, like wondering what's going to happen, like, and then yeah, that laundry episode was funny too with all the pink stuff. Drew Powell is the guy who's in that too. Is another job and actor. Is a friend of mine that bounced around a lot. He was on Gotham for a while, playing like some fish mongrel. But to see him 20 years younger, and probably 50 pounds lighter. If Drew heard me, he'd be laughing. But that was cool to revisit both of those old projects.
Definitely, Mad Men. I made to put that scene in there for you, and people consider that one of the greatest scenes in TV history as well. I noticed that every TV episode that you've been in, from the X Files, because that was your first taste of entertainment business right there, was the X Files. Yeah. Every episode that you touched in cinema, it was a huge hit each episode.
It's a strange thing. I get these relatively small roles, like the Mad Men monologue was just one scene, but they always end up being in these really pivotal episodes of television. Like the X-Files was one of the first things that I ever did, and the first real thing that I ever did. And the guy who was the guest star ended up getting like a guest star Emmy for it, because he was portraying this kind of like Appalachian religion called Shakers, who handle snakes. And so the whole thing was about snake handlers, and I get killed in the very first teaser of the show by snakes. But this guy's parents and family were Shakers. So he came to the X-Files producers and he said, I'll do this, but not if you're going to make fun of them. And they said, no, can you please tell us how to do it accurately? We like this stuff. So it becomes this iconic episode that I'm just the guy that got killed in the beginning of it. And then I did an episode of CSI where it was this really dark storyline.
It was the first time it got real gory.
It got very, very gory. Dakota Fanning happened to be in it when she was a child, and I ran into the director. Ironically, I did another episode of CSI about 10 years later as a police officer, because I guess they'd gone through every cast member or every actor in Hollywood, and they had to start cycling back around. And the guy was directing, and he was like, yeah, that gory episode is what shot us up in the ratings, and like people loved CSI because of that. So I was like, okay, great. And then Mad Men, I end up being the guy that bores Don Draper into retirement, like the third episode from the end of the entire series. And people always remember that one, that I'm doing his monologue that, in the sales pitch, sitting in the boardroom, that he had done so many years, but he's now over it. And mine is so, contrived and boring that he just gets up and walks away. But I take pride in that. I love that. I love that I was, on the goriest episode of CSI, or, the craziest X-Files, or, I bit Maura Tierney on ER and said bitch, which I think was one of the first times that NBC was allowing that curse word on it. So I'll take pride in that as well.
Anthony Edwards put you in the headlock there, and he told you that if you keep fighting, I'm going to fight you down.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he was like, the harder you push, the harder I have to push. And I was like, brother, this is my first episode of ER. You've been on it for a long time. I'm coming with it. I got a neck cramp that day, man. That was terrible. Probably should have listened to him.
But you come from a line in your family of entertainers, because I know you're all pranksters, jokesters. Your mother carried a water bug and would put it in a glass of water at a restaurant, because especially if a waitress had a good sense of humor, she'd put Vaseline on doorknobs.
Yeah, my family is all full of practical jokesters, which was how I got my sense of humor. My wife's not a big practical jokester. She's like, why would you hurt me to get a laugh? And I'm like, oh, if you come from my family, you'd understand it. But yeah, my mother would carry a water bug, like a plastic water bug, in her purse, and she would put it in a glass of water at a restaurant, which makes it all huge and distort it, and then hand it to the waitress. Or sometimes on a buffet line, she would leave it behind her for the next person to find, which seems crazy, but to me, it was normal family stuff. Like my grandfather had a glass of, it was brandy, which if you knew my grandfather, you knew that he never drank brandy, but it was one of those fake ones that have a seal on the outside of it. And he would come like walking up to you and then trip and sort of splash it on you, and then it wouldn't splash. Or he would come down the stairs with a pillow wrapped up, swaddled like a baby. Again, my grandfather was the father of 4. He never held one of those kids one time. Like right away, you should have been like, this is a joke. And then he would trip and drop the baby, which was just a pillow wrapped in a baby blanket. And that was just how we grew up. I mean, we just grew up like pulling jokes on each other. Easy ones from like, if you go to the bathroom at a restaurant, we take your plate of food and like hide it under your chair, to like really complicated ones. One of my favorite ones my mother ever pulled on my brother was when he went away to college. He went to University of Missouri, and he had done a dumb one on her, so she was pissed. So the night after like the big homecoming dance, his freshman year or sophomore year, because I think he was in a fraternity, and she knew that he would be out partying all night long. She just called him up and she said, hey, I'm going to drop off a couch for you. I'll be there at like 9 a.m. or something. She just calls him up and says, hey, Scott, I'll be there tomorrow at 9 a.m. And he can't say, no, don't come at 9 a.m. I'm going to be out partying all night because he's, underage at the time. So he wakes up all hungover, like gets himself together. Wait, my mom never shows up. There was no couch. There was never any intention on going. It was such a simple little joke that she pulled on my brother Scott. And he finally figures it out around noon, because like with my mom, it dawns on you eventually. You're like, I've been had again. So that was kind of where I got my sense of humor from a little bit. That and watching a ton of television.
That consisted of Cheers and the Cosby Show. I know that you were main in the sitcoms.
Yeah, mainly steeped in sitcoms. I watched any sitcom that was on. I mean, TGIF and Must See TV on Thursday on NBC's, like everything from Step by Step to like that dinosaur show that was on there, 227. If it was reruns, like if I was home from school, I was watching Leave It to Beaver. I was watching I Love Lucy. I was watching Cosby, obviously Cheers, Seinfeld, Friends, Family Matters. Like it didn't matter.
Gilligan's Island.
Yeah, a little bit of Gilligan's Island, which is great. That was a wild one. That would have to be reruns, Wings. I don't know if you remember the Cheers or the Cheers spinoff of Wings was a good one that I would watch, but just all the time, constantly. Sitcoms and then, drama shows too, but mainly the comedy ones.
Mm-hmm. I know your mother was good at seeing what you were interested in because she'd be bringing you to auditions. She was in the theater as well, and me doing my research. Dead Poet Society was the movie that really wanted you to get into acting. That was the main inspiration there.
Yeah, my mom was super supportive all the time, which was a blessing. You know what I mean? It's probably one of the things that I love most about her was that if you were into something, she would, get you there, find a way for you to do it. So if I said, Mom, I want to be an actor, or I'd love to find a play, she would find the audition for me, drive me there, drop me off, get me ready to go. And in St. Louis, there was, a couple of theaters, and she would go and take me to the show. So that we would also go see movies. Once my brother was out of the house and my sister was out of the house, it was just my mom and I, and we would go see movies together. And that was just like how I hung out with Mom. And she would probably just listen to me talk her ear off about the movies constantly. But one of those ones right in the 90s would have been Dead Poet Society. And it was just like, it just hits you so hard. And Robin Williams was so great. And I think I didn't realize how much it had affected me until he passed. And I started looking at all the movies that he was in. But that was one, for some reason, I guess because it was funny. He had that, comedy drama things that he did so well. And I probably looked up to him as an actor, wanted to be like him or wished that I was as talented as he was. And so when I looked back on it, I was like, I didn't even realize that Dead Poet Society hit me that hard, inspired me that much, made me want to be an actor, essentially. And it's funny how little things in your past, you don't realize how they sit with you until something shines a light on it like that, like his passing. But that's a great movie, man.
Yeah,
Josh Charles is in that too. A young Josh Charles is in that too.
That's right. Cool. No, that's a classic movie. And Robin Williams is one of those actors that was able to transcend into the drama genre because you saw him in Insomnia, 1 Hour Photo. He was doing these crazy movies. Yeah. Aside from what he was used to in Mork and Mindy.
Yeah. I used to watch a little Mork and Mindy, or on Happy Days he popped up. I think the Mork character showed up.
He did,
Days. Yeah. That's so funny. That was the origination. Yeah, Insomnia was fucking crazy too. That was a good one. He was great. He really, really was, man.
Definitely. Rest in peace to one of the greats. But I know you're a big Tom Hanks guy. Forrest Gump, you think, is the greatest movie of all time.
I always get grief for this, man. I'm always like, I'll argue with somebody. You know what I mean? I think it's the greatest American movie ever made. And I'm always like, we can talk about it. And I understand that like The Godfather is incredible, but I have a different like set of terms. I think you can't watch The Godfather with your grandmother or with your kid. Because it's bloody and it's gory and it's long and it's confusing. I love it, but like I couldn't tell you all the characters in that movie. Whereas like Forrest Gump, you can watch it with everybody. I mean, there's a little stuff in there that's a little, racy, or you have to explain to the young kids, but it's like a holiday movie. Like it comes on, and you watch it. I also think that like you can't be the greatest movie ever if it's like a tragedy. I think like a love story is better. Like a love story with comedy, that's like more universal. And I'm like, no, it can't be, Godfather or Shawshank Redemption or whatever, all these movies that people are like, no, it's the greatest one. I was like, it has to be a love story. Like it has to have a good, ending. And then technology wise, Forrest Gump like blew people away. I don't know. There's something about, so you look at Jurassic Park. When Jurassic Park first came out, it blew everybody away because of the dinosaurs. But when you watch it now, you're like, oh, no big deal. But for me, there's still something about Tom Hanks shaking JFK's hand that no matter the technology, it still kind of hits. And I mean, Star Wars, when you watch the old ones, like it's cool because it's nostalgic, but the technology doesn't blow you away anymore. I don't know. There's just something about some of those pieces that still are great. And I think it's hilarious. Like I quote it all the time. It drives my family crazy. My one buddy was like, no, it's rah, 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 Americana all the time. Like it's America's great. And I was like, no, you're not watching the movie. America's terrible in that movie. Like Forrest just has like a heart to him. Like they're invading Vietnam. People are getting assassinated. Like there's, a disease going around. Like Jenny gets AIDS. Like it's not pro-America by any means. It's pro like people, like American, not America. So I don't know. I'll probably wane on me eventually. My son will probably show me something and he'll convince me that it's not the best movie ever, but I'm still holding strong.
Aside from Forrest Gump, what else is in your top 5?
Well, I do love The Godfather, and I was watching that show that just came out, The Offer. It's funny, dude, like the more I think about what my favorite movies are, I think about the time that I watched them, because I think like you can't separate movies, make you feel something, so that first time that you watch like Goonies is one of my favorite movies of all time, because I used to watch it with my friends when I was growing up, and then I watched it with my son and showed it to him when he was probably a little too young to see it. Or like I never knew anything about the Lord of the Rings at all. I never read a book, didn't know anything, was not a fantasy guy at all, and was in town visiting all my high school buddies in St. Louis, and they were like, we got to go see this movie. And I sat down and was like, what is this? So that night that I saw that movie makes it one of the best movies, that I've ever seen. In terms of like watching them over and over again, they get replaced a lot. Like I loved 1917 when it came out, just because I had never seen a movie like that a couple of years ago, the way it was directed. The first time I ever watched the Star Wars Episode 4, like if you forget all the other ones, it's incredible because it's this fantasy that you don't know anything about, and the way that they tell it like halfway through it. But Godfather, the first Lord of the Rings, I'm a big Paul Newman fan. I like The Hustler a lot. I really like that 1917. Goonies is great. Friday, I think, is probably.
Yeah, I've done my research. I saw a video of you talking about Friday being a main.
My cousin put that up. I mean, Friday might be one of the best comedies ever. It's so good. It's so good. And yeah, I mean, you can Google like Eric Nenninger talking about Friday to hear all my takes on it. But that movie, man, I mean, talk about like comedians in it, great one-line quotes. The plot is about nothing. And then once you move to Los Angeles, it just makes like total more sense. Like you get everybody's caricatures, and I don't know, it's goofy. I love it. I love it like I love Anchorman, Caddyshack, Some Like It Hot, which is like a really, really old Marilyn Monroe movie. But I'm an easy laugher, so Friday just gets me every time.
Is it true that you got to tell Bernie Mac, Lord have mercy?
I did. I bumped into him when I was working on Malcolm in the Middle. He was doing the Bernie Mac show, and I came down the hallway and like bumped into him, as we were turning the corner. And the first thing that came out of my mouth was like, Lord have mercy, which is a line of his from Friday. And he just sort of laughed and was like, thank you, and I felt awesome. So I was like, oh, I just hit him with the line. I don't know if he gets that all the time or not, or if he knew what I was saying, but I think he did. He knows his own stuff. That was pretty cool. He was a funny guy too, man. Have you ever seen his first live at the Apollo stand-up?
No, I haven't. I'll have to check that out.
Dude, it's so classic. He comes out to the Apollo stage wearing pants that have an airbrushed picture of himself on them. He's got all white pants, and he's wearing a picture of himself on the pants. And his opening line is, I'm not scared of you motherfuckers. Because the Apollo's notorious for being like a hard room.
Lauryn Hill got booed off stage there.
Always, yeah. And he walks out there, and the first thing he says is, I'm not scared of you motherfuckers. It's really great. And he's got his own face on his pants.
That's classic.
Yeah, it's really great.
Rest in peace to Bernie Mac, one of the greatest to ever do it in comedy. But I know comedy is a huge thing for you, but you started out in elementary school in the plays. You were an innkeeper for the Nativity.
Yeah, I was
going on the plays you do in high school too, as well.
Yeah, the first play I ever did was a Christmas, story, because I was at a Catholic elementary school, and I was the innkeeper that didn't let Jesus and Mary and Joseph stay at the time. Jesus was still in her belly. So that's always my joke. I'm like, I was the innkeeper that told them to keep it moving. And then my schools had good theater programs. I was really, really fortunate. My high school had a great theater program. I was playing football and basketball at the time. But then I went to the school play, and it was this funny, goofy farce called Noises Off. And I was just blown away by it. But we were really lucky because they funded the theater program like they do a sport. So they had all the sets and the props, and like you could get away with doing it, and it was cool. Like you could be popular doing plays in the school. And so I fell in love with it, or I was already in love with it and had access to it. And so I just tried to pull off both. So I played football, played basketball until my senior year, and then did the fall play, and then the spring we had plays that we would do too. And I just did as much as I could, you know. It was great. It was great.
What position did you play for football?
I was a linebacker and a guard. So I played both ways. I try to tell my son, again, I got a 16-year-old son. I try to tell him, like, it was a small school. Like, it was pretty much no cut. We probably had like 40 kids on the team. And, you know, maybe 22 that were actually playing. But there was a point where I never left the field, like, because I was on every special team and playing both ways, which was brutal because you're just exhausted. But we had small guards who like pulled and did traps. And then I played either middle or outside linebacker. But then I would be on the punt team and the kickoff team and the kick return team and the punt return team. And I just stand on that field playing all day. God, I was sore back then. Yeah, linebacker and guard.
But you decided that you were going to audition for the American Academy of Dramatic Arts.
Yeah, it was kind of a serendipitous story. Washington University in St. Louis, Missouri is a really nice school, like borderline Ivy League school. They're a D3 school for football. So I was kind of loosely recruited to play linebacker for them. And they have a pretty good theater program. So I was like, great, I'll go to Wash U. My counselor was like, you know, your grades are just good enough to get in. Okay, cool. And I'll major in theater and I'll play football. Just keep doing what I'm doing. I did not get accepted to the school. My grades were not good enough to get in. And it was the only school that I applied to. So after that, I was like, oh, wow, I got nothing. I got to figure something out. And I just realized that no matter where I was going to be an actor, even if it was on the weekends as a hobby. You know, I had no plans to give this up. So I was like, all right, I'll just go all in. I'll just do this for real. I'll go to a school. There's another really good drama school in St. Louis called Webster University. And I was going to audition for that and go to that. And it's like a conservatory school is what they call it, where all they do is train actors and singers and, you know, think like NYU or the Juilliard School. So in order to get ready for that, I decided to audition for the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, which sounds a lot more prestigious than it actually is, at least the West Coast campus. The East Coast campus, they have a New York campus, which is one of the oldest acting schools in the country. The West Coast one is like the California cousin. It was made in the 70s, you know, and you could get accepted. It's very, very good training, but not as in demand, so you can't get it. I didn't know this at the time. I thought I was auditioning for the oldest school in the country, so no chance I'm going to get in. I'll do it as practice. Then I'll go to Webster University in St. Louis. I got into the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. I was like, oh my gosh, this is my dream. I can go and study like for real. And I had a choice actually to pick between the East Coast and the West Coast, but I had a friend going to Pomona College out here and his family was in San Diego. And so I was like, all right, I'll go to California. And you know, packed up and jumped in a car with a guy who was also headed out that way. Is this
the story of he was playing oldies and you're playing hip hop?
Yeah, that was the worst. Turner loved oldies the whole time, and we drove 3 days from St. Louis to California, and all we listened to was like doo-wop radio. And then when he would fall asleep, I would like try to sneak some Tribe Called Quest, something that was mellow. You can't just like throw on Wu-Tang. So I had to like sneak in like something that was like kind of chill, and he would wake up and be like, what's playing? But it was his car and we just met, you know. Needless to say, that roommate situation didn't last for very long.
So you were coming up during the golden age of hip hop. So what are your thoughts on what your kids are listening to now? Because hip hop's completely changed.
It's completely changed, but I actually like it. And it was funny when I was, I think I kind of grew up in the golden age, like that 96, 97 was amazing. But my friends, my two buddies were music producers and DJs. My one friend, Rob Fullstone, goes by DJ Crucial, and he makes music for a little record company called F5 Records out of St. Louis. So he would always just give me music, like anything that I knew about that wasn't like, you know, The Chronic or something that was massive. He would just be like, hey, everybody listen to this, mixtapes and stuff like that. So that was how I knew about music. And now when I have a kid who's a teenager who's very, very into music as well, like knows it all, he throws me all the stuff now too. So it's kind of like my relationship with music is the same. I just basically sit back and you know, leech off of other things. But I like the new stuff a lot now. I mean, some of it, mumble rap, obviously I'm an old head, so I'm just kind of like,
yeah.
But he, you know, I mean, I don't know if Kendrick is new or not, but like, I think he's probably in my top 5, you know, anyway. But I like J. Cole, I like The Baby, I like Travis Scott, I wouldn't know any of these guys if it wasn't for my son James, playing them for me. So there's some good ones out there, Definitely.
Now, do you kind of give back and throw to your son? These are the guys I listen to, and say I listen to Tribe Called Quest, and these guys growing up.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, it was funny. That was how we connected a little bit, is that I would play stuff for him and tell him about it. Like, I was playing Liquid Swords, that Jizza track for him,
yeah.
kind of like showing him that steady, continuous beat underneath it is similar to what he's listening to now. And he was like, oh, okay, I kind of see that. And I would, like, explain to him why Wu-Tang was so big, or what happened when Eminem first came out. Because in 99, like, I was just getting into college when My Name Is came out. So I'd be like, man, you don't even understand what this did. We didn't know what was going on. And like, the beat was so weird. And now he's listening to him. What's that collab song with him, Drake, Lil Wayne?
Forever.
That one. So like my son will play that one, and I'll listen to it. And it's like some people that I kind of grew up with some new people. And we both kind of agree that might be one of the greatest collab songs ever, or I might play like Outkast for him and tell him how Southern rap sort of came up, and what Andre 3000 did. And there was one time where I walked him through the Beastie Boys, because of course I'm a white kid from St. Louis, so that was on the playlist. But I was like, you're going to listen to one track from all their albums and just hear how they kind of like progressed, and he just listens, but I get a chance to talk, and we'll go over it. It's good. It's the way we bond. But now he's playing new stuff for me, which is crazy, and I love it.
No, it's two totally different eras, but you've accepted it. That's good.
Yeah. It keeps me young. He definitely like keeps me young,
But I want to get into getting further into this now, because you're going to college, and then eventually you find your agent after getting out to Pasadena. And the agent that took you on, I know she was nice, but she felt bad for kids in between like the 18 and 19 range once you're on the cusp of getting into the adulthood.
Yeah, that was an interesting thing. She was a kid agent at an agency that had adults. And so she represented little ones all the way up to around, like you said, 18 or 19 years old. And there's sort of a dead zone in there, because you come out of college, you're not young enough to be like a little kid actor, which there aren't that many of, and you're not old enough to have any kind of credits. So I mailed her a letter, actually physical letter, that said, hey, my friend recommended you to me. I was hoping to come in for a meeting. I just graduated, blah, blah, blah. And she called me in for an audition because of that. She felt, these kids are sort of in this dead zone. So it was a little bit of a break, a little bit of a nice woman looking out for somebody. I auditioned in her office at Hollywood and Vine. It was very Hollywood. Her name's Chester Henry. She's not an agent anymore. And I think I remember bringing her like the most brutal, traumatic monologue, like tears and dead baby or something, from acting school. Like, I was going to show her everything I got right in this like sunny office at Hollywood and Vine. And I just remember her nodding, and and I worked on it in school, so it was good. And she was like, "Okay, can you now read this commercial that I have right here for like Totino's Pizza Rolls or something?" And I was like, "Yeah, Chester, Totino's Pizza Rolls are hot and fresh or something." And she's like, "Great, we'll start working together." And then that's the agent that I was with when I got the X-Files and ER and CSI and Jeepers Creepers too, actually, all the way up through that. So that was crazy.
This is a perfect transition here to Jeepers Creepers 2, because I remember the first time I saw it was on Sci-Fi. I think I was in maybe second grade at that time when I first saw this.
Who'd let you watch Jeepers Creepers in second grade, bro? Like,
my grandfather, my mother always says that rest in peace, he was on my father's side. He would have to pay for my psychiatric therapy, because he's always showing me all these horror movies when I was younger. And I know you're not a big horror guy, but what's crazy, because when I do October shows, I usually interview a lot of horror actors and people who've been in horror movies such as yourself. I know, but you have a lot in common with them, because a lot of them don't like horror movies, but they're in them and they really pull off their performances, such as yourself as Scott.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even realize that. Yeah, I'm not a horror movie fan at all. I don't really watch them ever. Like, I don't like suspense that much, but
you're a thriller guy, though. I know you like thrillers.
Yeah, definitely. They're like the psychological thrillers are always cool. You know what I mean? I like those like cop shows where they're trying to maybe catch somebody. I just started that Dahmer TV show last night on Netflix. Geez. That one is rough. Probably because it's real. That's what's really crazy. But no, I never watched horror movies. That's interesting. You say that other people are like that they'll be in them but not like them. But once you're there, obviously it's a movie, so you're excited to be in it. And the guy who was playing the creeper, like
Jonathan Breck, yeah,
he was in the first one too. The makeup and everything is like so legit that you don't have to act too much. Like we were on a school bus in the middle of nowhere at 3 a.m. and he was standing outside the trailer, the bus looking, like the creeper. And so it was pretty easy to like fall into fear and everything. But I don't even really watch that one that much,
Wow.
And
Yeah, I know you told
I
me you revisited the clips yesterday, and it's been a while. But it's always going to be on like on October. I know it's going to be on Sci-Fi soon.
yeah, they run it on Sci-Fi all the time, which is cool. No, I don't watch that. I've never seen Saw. I've never seen Hostel. I've never seen like House of a Thousand Corpses or any of those at all, man. None of them.
I'm surprised you don't like any of the comedy horror crossovers like Creep Show, Evil Dead 2.
See, I think I would never even know that they were a comedy one. I would see Evil Dead 2 and be like, no, like, but you're a big horror movie fan, right? I saw that. I guess it was the October shows, but you've done a lot of interviews with guys like that. And
yeah, I've done a lot of interviews with the main horror actors, and I wanted to shed light on what you've done because I think your role, you have the best part in the movie besides the creeper, in my opinion.
Nice, thank you.
You take over the bus. I mean,
yeah.
You're ready to throw everyone off it.
Mutiny, right? And then just run scared right when that thing comes. It's a funny story when Scott, the guy that I play, gets pinned to the tree. I figured as like a kid, he would just be freaking out and would be like, oh my God, help me, help me, help me, help me, help me. And I pitched to the director that he would just start profusely apologizing to double D, yeah, Garakai Mutomviro is his name. And I was just like, I think he would start being like, I'm so sorry, and the director was like, yes, absolutely, please do that. And so that made me feel great. I was just like, oh, I got a little ad lib in here, but it made perfect sense that before you were trying to take care of yourself, especially for Scotty, now you're like, anything to save my life. And I just started profusely apologizing to him, trying to get that knife out, man. What a sucker.
Indeed, got the knife out at the last second, and then you get taken away.
And then boom, gone. That was wild, man.
But you fit perfectly for the role because of your experience as playing basketball and football as a jock. And I know you were going into your auditions cocky already, I heard.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I felt like well, when you start to get a little bit of work early on, you think I can't be touched. Like, this is easy, I mean, even like, I've signed a series regular contract with Malcom in the Middle, and then I was getting cleared to do a movie. And, I know that everyone says that it's hard to do, but not for me, like, and I probably had a sports mentality towards it. I would just outbeat everybody, and so I was definitely going into auditions super cocky, which was a lot of the characters that I play. Like, even to this day, I play overconfident, cocky characters. I was doing an audition this morning where a guy was called for being overconfident and cocky and was going to get arrested for killing a girl. But I think that was part of kind of growing up. You know what I mean? Like, where do you keep confidence and where do you let cockiness go? You don't want to be second guessing yourself by any means, but at the same time, you don't want to be like, I'm untouchable. After a couple of years after Jeepers Creepers and Malcom in the Middle, I kind of hit like a plateau where I wasn't working, like a slump for a while. And I think that was humbling for me. I ended up getting into a project called Generation Kill, which was an HBO miniseries.
By the creators of The Wire.
Yeah, David Simon and Ed Burns. And that was like it was a great job. It's the job that I'm most proud of, but I think it came to me right when it was supposed to come to me. And at the same time was also like healing in the sense of, you can leave that old cocky kid behind, still be a confident actor, work with these great people, but you don't need to have blinders on that you can't be touched. It was like it was all meant to be, but no, that was some growing pains there, because it was easy for me, that sounds cocky, but like I did come out, audition, and get parts. I wish it had been a little harder, because maybe I would have learned that lesson a little earlier. But at the same time, it was good to get rolling and get some parts and then learn it in my mid to late 20s is when I finally realized, I had to keep my eye on the ball, stay hungry, keep trying, never get, too comfortable. That's all good stuff for an actor, like it is for an athlete too. And yeah, you can always be knocked down. You can always hit the wall.
But it's always important to get back up, and you got back up.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's like I said, man, even when I didn't get accepted to Wash U, I knew I was going to be an actor. So I just got to figure out where they're going to let me do it.
But how was the premiere? Because I heard that there was a premiere for Jeepers Creepers 2. It was a home run at the box office again. I know the first one was, but this was another one.
it was full on like movie premiere, which I had never been to before. Like it was at a theater on Hollywood Boulevard, red carpet, like all decked out. I mean, I was just overwhelmed by it, because it was an MGM movie in movie theaters, and so it was great. It was great. Did the red carpet, rode in a limo. I got my mom to ride in the limo with me. She came to the red carpet, and she was lined up behind the photographers, like calling out my name, because everyone's saying, when you line up for those things, they're always like, Eric, 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 because they want you to look at their camera. And then I hear this voice behind saying, Eric John, which is my middle name, Eric John, Eric John. I was like, Eric John. And my mom was up there probably with like a disposable camera, like, and I just smiled, and it was like everything, all the dreams that you had when you were a little kid, playing the nativity story, and your mom is on the red carpet, and my wife, I was with my wife at the time, and she's there, and all these guys. It was amazing, man.
Did you get to keep any props from the movie? I know sometimes you'll be able to keep the jacket.
I usually do steal a prop from everything that I did. That was more what I would do in plays, because it was easier to get away with them. But no, I don't have anything. I wish I had the jacket or something from Jeepers Creepers. I do have a school bus that the director signed for me, and I still keep that one. And like, as my projects got bigger, I couldn't actually steal stuff from them. I have some stuff from Generation Kill, because we had a bunch of Marine gear. So like, I have a notebook that I was using, and a pen. I kept the card, my business card from Mad Men. Like, okay. I sort of stuck that one away. I forget my character's name right now, but it was whatever he was from, and it was set it on the card, and I handed it to Don Draper, and they gave me 3 or 4 of them, to use, and one of them disappeared from the set. So, but a lot of actors do that. A lot of actors are always stealing things. So I don't feel bad.
I want to dig deeper into the Scott character, because you eventually play Scott again, another character named Scott, on One Day at a Time. But you used to keep a notebook of questions to answer about your character. So what were the questions that you were answering about Scott and Jeepers Creepers 2?
It's funny, when I was younger, I mean, the whole idea with an actor is that you want to get to know them as well as you know yourself. And what I kind of learned in drama school and sort of figured out was that there's a ton of stuff that like Max knows about Max, that may never come up, but it kind of makes you relax and behave like a real person if you know all that stuff. So I just figured that if I could answer 100 different questions about my person, then that would just flesh out more, because I know I can answer them about myself. So, I mean, it would be everything from like, real deep stuff like, is the person religious? Does this person lie? Does this person like to be lied to? Would they cheat on their girlfriend? What music do they listen to? Are they a Beatles guy or an Elvis guy? Are they a hip hop guy, or are they, a folk singer guy? Do they like sports? Do they not like sports? Anything that popped in my head, any question whatsoever that was pretty simple, So like for Scott, some of them would be like, for Scotty Braddock on Jeepers Creepers, like obviously he's a sports guy. Like he probably likes classic rock, or like, Led Zeppelin, or like, I wouldn't picture him as a hip hop guy, just little things like that. Like, would he cheat on his girlfriend? Definitely. Like, does he lie? Of course Scott lies. Does he like being lied to? No, is he confident? Is he not? But if you can just run through all of those questions for anybody, it just makes it so that you're not faking it as much, because you know that much about them. So I mean, I don't do it as diligently as I used to, because it's kind of automatic now. That I'll think that way. But every once in a while, I'll go back and just be like, I wonder what that guy would do here, or I wonder what that guy would do with this situation. And it has nothing to do with the actual script, but it's just getting to know them as well as you know yourself, so that you can think like them when you need to. Yeah, Scotty would definitely lie, wouldn't he? Son of a bitch. Scott the Bobo is what I call him in One Day at a Time, because that was what Justine Machado's character called him. Scott the Bobo. I don't think he would. He's probably like pretty straightforward. I feel like he listens to like Elvis Costello or something corny, or like Sugar. What is that? Sugar Ray. That's like a Scott kind of music. That was a great show.
No, definitely. When we're getting into Scott here, what would you say was your favorite line of dialogue? Because you took over with Jeepers Creepers, I said before.
My favorite line of dialogue on Jeepers Creepers? Oh, man. You want to play Cock of the Walk now, bro?
Oh, yeah.
Bro. Or that profusely apologizing, I'm sorry. But yeah, I think when he steps up to Double D and he says, want to play Cock of the Walk now? bro.
Yeah.
So bad. So bad. Just that light little subtle racist.
Yeah, no, you could definitely tell that. And then in the end, it's like, no, it doesn't matter anymore. Save
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. We had a basketball net on set that in between setups and things when we had long time, we would go at it. And the guy that plays Double D and I would go at it. Like we were the best players in the cast. You know, I mean, not saying much, but man, the two of us would just either in 3-on-3 or 1-on-1. Garakai Mutambira was his name, and I just remember like playing as hard as we possibly could because it was a basketball team in the movie, and I guess they just threw it up for us. Man, that was fun. I'd love to play with him again. I don't see him often enough.
Yeah, apparently he sucked, and you want him to change the flat.
Yeah, actually.
Oh boy, but no, just that's a classic right there, a horror classic. It's a great sequel too, because when you look at horror movies, once you get into the sequels, it's like, oh boy, here we go
Yeah.
downhill. But no, but that's definitely up there for me and for viewers. I know it's a top sequel.
Yeah, they definitely amped it up, and it was kind of a cool premise. The idea that everyone's stuck on a bus. The writer director Victor Salva said that he always wanted. I guess there's a Hitchcock movie. I'm not positive where they're stuck on a boat, or he had the idea that you would basically be contained. You know, like a one-room thing, but something like that where it was a mobile thing. You know, mobile vehicle that had been shut down, and everybody's stuck there, and the pressure builds, and one of them breaks, and you can kind of see people reveal themselves through the situation that they're in, which actually is a cool part of horror movies, and I do appreciate that you're in this otherworldly position, so you have to respond in the way you respond. But that was the whole idea. He always wanted to have some movie where they were stuck in not even like a warehouse or a room or a mansion, but like in a very, very close quarters where you can't get out and the pressure's building. And then that was kind of cool. The Minxie character would have the visions that they had done in the first one, so we had sort of a window into what the situation we were dealing with was, so that just tips everybody over. Their stress just finally breaks them, and Scotty like shows his true colors and wants to save himself, and the rest of them start crying. They take off. But yet that idea of a pressure cooker was a cool one. I think that they did a good job for the sequel, and then using that creeper character, which is a pretty cool iconic character that's scary.
Yeah. He picked you out though when he was upside down. That's a classic scene.
Well, that's a disputed who he was actually looking at. We'll see.
Oh boy, but One Day at a Time that I mentioned, Mad Men, Generation Kill. You went to South Africa for that for a while.
Yeah, they shot Generation Kill in 3 countries in Southern Africa. So it was South Africa, Namibia, which is on the western side of South Africa, and then Mozambique, which is on the eastern side. So we were in Namibia, then a little desert town in South Africa, then over to Mozambique, and then back to Johannesburg. I mean, talk about a dream. As an actor, you audition for this big project. It comes from these huge, creators, and then they're going to fly you down to Africa. It was 6.5, 7 months down there, which was a long stretch. My son was 1.5 at the time, so I was sort of pulled between the two worlds that I was living. But I never expected to be in that part of the world. I didn't know that I was going to be with that group of guys. I'm all still friends with all of them today, and working on an incredible show. But you were also getting to pretend to be a Marine. We had decommissioned Humvees and real M4 rifles and all the gadgets and stuff, and we were working out all the time with the trainers and living in a hotel room that was all in a hotel that was all us. Like we took over essentially a Howard Johnson. It was like this big barracks, constant music playing all the time, constantly working out, just feeling your alpha maleness. And then we got to, pretend to be Marines with trucks and guns and stuff. And it was really good that they had 3 actual reconnaissance Marines, 3 of them that were actually in the campaign that's portrayed in the miniseries. And they would consistently remind us that this was not how it really was. This is Hollywood as fuck. Like you guys are going home to your beds every night. There's espresso machines around the corner. They're like, it's the exact same minus the death and the danger. So that kept us grounded and humbled a little bit when we thought that we were real Marines,
And the creator of The Wire with David Simon told you, could you make this more real? And that kind of hit different for you at a time as well.
Yeah, the audition that I had for Generation Kill was a wild one. I was actually in St. Louis, ironically, for the weekend, and my agent called me and said I had an audition on a Saturday. And I remember auditioning for this project about a year before, and I knew that it was a good one. And so I got together some airline miles, and I flew like a 7 a.m. flight from St. Louis to Los Angeles, which sounds like something that actors do, but I didn't do anything like that at the time. Like I didn't fly in, and I drove to the audition, and I had a flight home, for like 5 p.m. that day because I was, seeing family in St. Louis. And I was just like, I hope when I go in there that I get to at least do it more than one time. Because a lot of times as an actor, you read it once, they say thank you, and you hit the road. I was like, I flew all the way from St. Louis. So I did it once and everybody was there and it was good. And then I did it again. And my character was a bit of a blowhard. He was a little over the top and stuff. And everybody was kind of nodding and they kind of looked at David Simon, who I didn't know at the time. And he said that line to me. He said, we're not doing you any favors by calling this guy Captain America. That was his nickname. And it was actually a dig. Like that's what all the soldiers called him. No one said that to him in his face because he actually was a captain. If you said that to him, you would get in trouble. But he thought that he was in a movie. He goes, we're not doing you any favors by calling this character Captain America. But this is a real person, and I was like, oh my gosh, I felt this responsibility to this actual guy and to this project that was about real people, that I was sort of like faking it and kind of like selling it short by acting. I mean, in that moment, in between the second time I did it and the third time I did it, I felt like I had let this guy down in some weird way. Because it's one thing when you're playing a character, but when you're playing a real guy, you sort of feel this like responsibility to at least be honest about it. And all these real people. And then on top of that, they were service members. They had actually served, they had seen combat. Like, so whatever that was that he said to me and the way he said it and how I felt, I did it again. In acting terms, you ground it, you make it more real. But I think also something kind of opened up in me in a creative sense, where I put everything into these, two little kind of short scenes. And I guess that was enough right there that they saw what they needed to see. And then, Alexa Fogel is the casting director of that project, and she's a big time casting director. She's great. She cast Atlanta right now, and a bunch of other amazing things. She loved it. David Simon loved it. They called me about a week later and they're like, you're being considered, get ready. It goes to Africa from May to December. And I was like, whoa, changed my life. I mean, in some sense, in that little moment, but I don't know. I'm glad that he said it, and I'm glad that it responded the way it did. Who knows?
What piece of film or TV are you most proud of throughout your career? Because I feel as though that was a life-changing experience, as you just said, and something that you took to heart with that role. But if you could think of one in particular, what do you think defines Eric Nenninger?
It definitely is Generation Kill, is the one that I'm most proud of, because of the friendships that I made, the experiences that I had, both on set and off set. The project that we did, the people that we were portraying. I bump into occasionally people that will recognize me from it, or they are servicemen that have watched it. And that always like makes you feel more proud, just because there's something about service guys, there's something about Marines, and they're like, yeah, that was really accurate. You guys nailed it. And then just, like I said, I saw some of the guys from Generation Kill last weekend. I'm taking a trip to New York with my wife at the end of the month to see two more. One of the guys in a show with two more of the guys. He's doing a play out there. So it's these lifelong bonds that I've had. This was 15 years ago that we made it. And you don't normally see people after the show ends. So there was just something really special about it that I'm most proud about it. It was the biggest experience, professionally. It's right up there with like the birth of my kids and my wedding and stuff as like big moments in my life. I'm proud of a lot of things that I did, but that's the number one, definitely.
No, I could definitely tell that, especially about the passion. I'm surprised because you chose Pasadena. Well, you made the right choice in the end. I agree. You got to go out to LA if you want to get in the in the film. But I'm surprised you didn't go to New York because you're such a big theater guy and Broadway, and you like the stage and the applause from the audience and seeing them out in the hallway when you're done.
Yeah, I definitely, and I miss it a little bit too because I haven't had time to do it as much. But that was always like, that was the ego thing too, a little bit though, was when you would come off the stage and you'd go into the hallway when I was in high school and like be like, hey, I'm kind of a big deal. But there is definitely something about like the crowd that you can't get away from. I miss doing theater. I miss doing plays. I want to get back to it now. It takes a lot more of a time commitment. And so I was, working more in film and television mainly and raising my family. But it was interesting when I had the choice between the New York and the LA campus, because I feel like I probably am more of a stage guy in terms of what I would want to do. But I think it was moving out of my hometown. I wanted to go somewhere where I had a friend. So I chose LA, and then that was working. So I never had to switch it up. And there's theater out here too. It just doesn't, it's not, you can't make a living doing it as much as you can. But who knows? Maybe, maybe New York is in my future somewhere once I get these kids out of the house.
You gotta
get this
prepare.
J. Cole fan out of the house and this next one.
uh, better prefer. You got to get your big coat on to come out here. The cold weather.
Yeah, right. That's the other thing too, is I may not want to.
Can't stand it. You got to get your Canada Goose on.
Shit, it's like 65 here now, and I'm like, what is happening?
But St. Louis to LA, like the Rams. Are you a Rams fan?
Yeah, that was kind of weird, man, because the Rams, all of a sudden St. Louis had a football team, and then they were in the Super Bowl and they won, and then they should have won the next one. Like out of nowhere, we were like, what the hell's happening? Then the Rams sucked for 10 years. Like they were terrible. And then the way that they left, like, they sort of dogged the city. Kroenke, the owner of the Rams, kind of like dogged the city a little bit and sort of manipulated some money out of them. It's all kind of like political, but there was a lot of tax dollars that he sort of walked away with. So, and then he said that St. Louis was a terrible town that never supported the Rams. So that's all my family and my friends were like, we supported the Rams forever. Like, F you, Stan Kroenke. And then he moved to LA, and I was like, I don't care. I'm a St. Louis Cardinal fan. I'm not a Dodger fan. They have a football team, no big deal. But then my son looks up at me and he goes, Dad, we got a football team. Like, we got a team, Dad. And I was like, oh, no, what am I going to do? So I take him to see a game, and we go to see a game at the Coliseum, and he's all excited in a jersey and everything. And he's probably 10 at the time. And the Rams fumble the opening kickoff, and the Falcons score immediately. And this is when the Falcons were really good too. And I put my arm around him. I was like, welcome to being a Rams fan. I was like, as much as they seem like they're great, they've been terrible. And then they fire Jeff Fisher, they get Sean McVay, and now winning cures everything. So yeah, I'm a Rams fan, man. Unfortunately, yeah. I am.
Well, congratulations on winning a Super Bowl last year.
Yeah, that was dope, man. That was fun. And we went down I got to go to the stadium for regular season. I didn't make it to the game, but then we went down to that parade, which is the first time I've done a parade with my son. Second one in LA that I've done. I did a Lakers one when they were first winning their championships, but that was cool. That was cool to take them down there and like walk in the streets. And we saw Aaron Donald, flexing on the bus and just like celebrating a championship with LA people. It was title town here for a little bit here, man. That was crazy.
It was. You're lucky. It could be worse. You could be a New York fan with my trio here of Jets, Mets, and Knicks. Brutal.
Jets, Mets, and Knicks. Oh man. I mean, the Garden is wonderful. I've never been to it. Like you got storied stadiums, but that I don't know if you probably don't remember it, but the NLCS between the Mets and the Cardinals in 2006 was a Game 7 epic, like one of the best ones. I was listening to some announcers talk about it maybe last week, and they were saying that might have been one of the best NLCSs of all time. Like it was in New York, was Game 7. Scott Rowland was like a guaranteed home run that got robbed by the Mets center fielder or left fielder. And then Adam Wainwright, who was closing at the time, struck out, I think it was Beltran maybe, in the bottom of the ninth. Like I remember freaking out about that. That was an epic series, but sorry, I don't mean to like.
No. These are moments that you won't forget in sports.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Those are the ones. And I'm out here in St. Louis, and all my buddies I'm out here in LA, and all my buddies are at home in St. Louis, and we were texting or whatever we were doing at the time for 2006, just like freaking out. That should be fun.
But you're working on Winning Time right now at the Rise of the Lakers Dynasty, man. Tell me about this, because I know you're at the announcers table.
Yeah, so I play Keith Erickson, who was the color commentator for the Lakers out here on KCLA, the radio and the local broadcast, with Chick Hearn. And Chick Hearn was like the iconic Lakers basketball announcer. He invented terms like slam dunk and alley-oop and things like that, and announced for the Lakers for like 40 years. So from end of 79 through about 88, Keith Erickson was the color commentator. And this show is so big and so legit that they cast every single role as accurately as possible. So I kind of look like Keith Erickson. They put me in a wig. They put me in some like 70s clothes. And then I get to basically sit courtside while they recreate all of these great Lakers matchups. So in the first season, they were doing the Sixers and the Lakers, who played in the NBA championship, Dr. J, Magic Johnson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and you're sitting courtside because, again, they do the whole thing. They make a real basketball court. They put the Forum emblems down. Everybody's there. And you're watching this guy in a Magic Johnson jersey standing next to this guy in a Julius Erving jersey, and they got wigs on and they got, their talks, they get basketball doubles, and they're going up and down. Michael Cooper's there. And like, I mean, it's incredible. I love being a part of it. And Erickson was amazing. He was an incredible athlete. Like, I had no idea about this guy. If you grew up in LA, I guess you knew him from the radio, but I didn't know anything about him. He played on the UCLA championship teams with John Wooden and with Kareem. He was on a triple scholarship at UCLA for basketball, volleyball, and baseball. And he was on the 1968 US Olympic volleyball team, won a gold medal there, and then was on the Lakers in 72 when they won a championship with Jerry West, Elgin Baylor, and actually Pat Riley too. So Keith Erickson was a small forward shooting guard. And so, I got hired to play that, and it's great. Like, Spencer Garrett plays Chick Hearn, and he's got him down like perfect. And basically the bit with Chick Hearn is that he didn't want his color commentator to talk and ruin it. He was so good on his own that he didn't need it. So a lot of the stuff that we do is me about to speak and he cuts me off. So I don't really have many words. Erickson eventually became really good, and he did talk like, they're doing it for dramatic effect. And he actually went on to CBS and started doing the national broadcast. But a lot of the stuff in the first season, especially when my guy comes in, is me about to speak and him cutting me off. So we're doing that a little bit in season 2. They're making season 2 right now, which is great. Everybody's back. John C. Reilly, Adrian Brody, Jason Segel, Jason Clark, who plays Jerry West, Quincy, Isaiah is playing Magic Johnson. Solomon Hughes plays Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, which is crazy because the dude is like 6'9" anyway. He played college basketball and he looks like Kareem. Like, he's not even really an actor, he's just like, but I thought he killed it in the first season. They're all great guys and the production is awesome. So I'm excited. I'm excited to be a part of it and looking forward to season 2 for sure.
Have any of the Lakers from that Showtime era showed up on set at all?
No, Rick Fox came by one time, so
Okay.
not quite Showtime, but a little bit of that. So he was there. I don't know how much the Lakers like it because it kind of shows what was going on behind the scenes, and it's sort of like, it was written by a Sports Illustrated writer who did extensive interviews and all this stuff. A lot of it was already known and stuff. But I think that they are either like, hey, let's not talk about what happened, outside of the court and in the locker room, or they dispute it. Which is funny. But a lot of these people that are involved in it were, 1 or 2 steps away from them. And they're like, this is how it happened, even to the point, like, the character that plays Norm Nixon is Norm Nixon's son, Devon Nixon, who's an actor and looks just like him and stuff. So a lot of times he's just like, Dad, that's how it was. You and I both know, you did wear that Paisley shirt, or something like that. So no, I haven't seen any of the actual Lakers from the Showtime era. Foxy came by though. That was pretty cool. That was good to see that. He was probably looking to get a part. He's an actor.
It's a shame that Kobe wouldn't be able to visit the set. Rest in peace to him.
I know, man. That would be a dream if he was able to come by. That was tough. That was rough for everybody in Los Angeles, and I think around the country. I was talking to my dad. I was like, has anybody ever tragically died who was that great, so quickly, so unexpectedly, a champion, and young? And he pointed out Roberto Clemente, which was before my time.
Pirates.
Yeah, Pirates guy and a humanitarian and a champion and stuff. But Kobe was something else just because of, being a 5-time champion, being an MVP, playing in the finals so much, being such a cutthroat player, like notoriously terrible to, opponents and teammates, but also a winner, the Mamba mentality. And then
I think he won an Oscar too for a short film.
Yeah, and the guy gets out of it and he starts making, I think, to basketball, right? To Basketball with Love or something it was called. Yeah. And he's getting into filmmaking, and it seemed like, just from watching the interviews and stuff with him leading up to that tragic day, he seemed at peace with leaving basketball, which a lot of guys aren't. They become announcers, or they miss the game. Or Kobe seemed like he was going to transition so easily. And then we just found out that Sunday afternoon that he was in that crash, and it was like a shock. We went down to the Staples Center. Everyone was kind of leaving memorabilia and stuff, and they put up 5 or 6 big boards that you could sign, just like thank yous and things. And people were signing the concrete in and around the Staples Center. Crypto.com is what it's called right now, but everyone still calls it Staples Center. And you could just see like the city was shocked and their hearts were broken. That would have been, if he had come to set, if I got to meet Kobe Bryant, that would have been something special.
Yeah.
Because that was my era. I moved out to Los Angeles in 99.
Oh, so you were right there on the cusp with the Shaq and Kobe era, them playing the Sixers with AI.
Yeah, yeah, that was an amazing. I couldn't believe that. And actually, the Sixers lost to the Raptors with Vince Carter in that
Yeah.
Eastern Conference Finals. That was an incredible one. But I got here and they won 3 championships, and I was a Laker fan for life because St. Louis didn't have a team,
No.
so I wasn't like betraying my hometown. And then yeah, all of a sudden I'm living in Los Angeles, and Shaq and Kobe and Derek Fisher and Robert Horry, and then that second 2 that they won with Pau Gasol, that was, and Derek Fisher was still on it. That was great too. In 09 and 10, those were amazing championships too. He was something else. Kobe was something else.
Yeah, one of the greatest to ever do it. Number 2, in my opinion, next to Michael Jordan. I know everyone likes to say LeBron and all these other guys, but Kobe never gets his fair share here.
Whew, he was a killer, man. He was a killer. I know everyone's always like, who would you want to take your last shot? And you're like, man, pass anybody the ball.
Yeah.
You can't go wrong, Michael, Kobe, LeBron. LeBron always impresses me with like his overall game and like the longevity of his career. Like it blows me away that he's up there in assists and like blocks and like steals in the finals and like 3-pointers. Like I'm just blown away that he's able to do that. But then you can always make an argument with MJ or Kobe or, all of them. Parlor games.
You can. Big Bang Theory, this is a big show, but you had a guest spot on that. So how's it being on the Big Bang Theory set?
That was a pretty surreal thing because I was a fan, like I like easy comedies, and that's one you can just like throw on. So I've been watching it for years and years and years. And so when I got on it, everybody was wonderful and great, but it was more when I was done working that I could like hang out on that set and like sit on that couch and take pictures by the elevator. Like it was like I was on a tour of the set. I was like, let me just finish this scene over here. It was like a space zero gravity thing that we were doing, and I was playing an astronaut kind of guy. And then when it wrapped, my wife was there watching, and the both of us went over to the set where the couch was and sort of nerded out on it. But everybody was cool, friendly, funny, nice. They've been doing it for 12 years. It's the longest running sitcom ever. They passed Cheers for most situational comedy, multi-camera comedy episodes with like, I don't know, 10,000 or something, who knows, like some incredible amount. So that was really iconic. And for a TV fan, I was more happy to be there as a fan than I was to be an actor. It was fine.
You're also an acting coach as well. So what do you feel as though are the qualifications that you have to master in the craft of acting, but to teach acting, you think?
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. Like, it's funny. I learned so much teaching it, so much in addition to what I always did knowing it, because like, if you can explain it, then you really know it. And if you can explain it to somebody that doesn't know it, then it's clear and you really do know it. Like I can, talk about acting theory or something in a real abstract way and make you just be like, I don't know what you're talking about, dude. But if I can explain it to you, then that made me a better actor. And I think like the one biggest thing that you have to do is you have to, fool yourself into not knowing what's going to happen next, which is like a little trick. And like, if you can do that while you're acting, everything else that you do beforehand will work, which is not something you can necessarily teach, except you have to be like, hey, remember when you were a kid and you were playing imagination games and you would fool yourself, or you remember when you would wrap a present and then you'd unwrap it and then wrap it again and unwrap it and be surprised by it. But that's the hardest thing to probably teach, is like fool yourself into not knowing what's going to happen next. And then after that, I think it's be incredibly curious about people and who they are and what they're about and what they do and the stories that they're in and why they do stuff. Like so much of when I was teaching people, it would be like, wait, hang on for a second, slow down. That was crazy what he just did right there. Did you see that? Like he said, hey, have a seat. And that guy didn't sit down. Like, and stop and like get curious about that like a little kid, Because when you get really, really curious about people and what they're doing, you start to ask questions about what they're doing and why they're behaving that way. And if you can answer those questions, like we were talking about before, then hopefully you can think like the person in the situation that they're in. If you know enough about them, you can think the way that they think. And if you think the way that they think, you'll feel the feelings that they feel. Actually, my high school acting teacher taught me that. And so even 25 years later, I'm still working from that mentality. If you think the character's thoughts, you'll feel the character's emotions. But it's hard to think like another person. You got to know everything about them, what they value, what they love, what they're scared of, and you got to look at the story that they gave you with the curiosity of a kid. Why did they do that? Why did they get so angry right there? well, this person was being mean to them and they, don't like them being mean to them because they got a promotion instead of them. And you're like, oh, stop for a second. Think about what that would be like. You're on a bus with all of your teammates and you guys lost a game. So you're already pissed off at this guy. You guys just went through a whole year of high school and, Double D got the start instead of Scotty. So now you're already mad at him. Now there's some crazy fucking creature that's coming after you guys. And you have no allegiance to that guy. You already hated him. You already wanted to sell him out, right? So what do you think when now he's, potentially smile at him? You think, I don't like that guy anyway. We should get him off that bus, And so and then hopefully if you think about it clearly enough, it'll come off real. It'll come off that you're not faking it. Like with Captain America and Generation Kill, I think I acted it really, really well the first 2 times in the auditions. And I think I probably lived through it the 3rd time. And that's what you're always going for, So, I mean, if I could say one thing to an actor, I'd be like, learn absolutely everything you can about this person so you can think for them in the situation that they're in. And then try your damnedest to pretend like you don't know what's going to happen next, and be incredibly curious about everything that goes on, people, places, and stories.
No,
just that, it's easy. Everyone can do it.
That was deep.
And then have comedic timing too. Like make sure you hit the jokes and hold still.
Who's an up and coming actor that you've had the chance to give some pointers to or teach that you noticed that he's one of the stars in the making?
I'm trying to think like people that I work with, one of the guys, and I didn't necessarily give pointers to him, but we were colleagues, is Jay Ellis, who was just in Top Gun Maverick and was on Insecure. I'm not by any means his acting coach. We were acting colleagues and we studied together at the same studio. And so he would give me pointers and I would give him pointers, and he would tell, but you could kind of see that he just had like a hunger and attention to detail, and like a humble swagger to him, which is a cool way to put it. Like he had that combination of both things. And you could kind of see that Jay was gonna do some incredible acting. And I hope that he gets even bigger parts than he had in Top Gun Maverick. Maverick was, fun, cool, jet flying, it didn't have a lot of like character for him necessarily to be doing. So that would be one that I got to actually like work with him, and then learn from him as well too. But I think he's gonna do good things. He's also probably gonna end up producing and directing, and he'll never be on the other side of the camera again. But with that face, those looks, he needs to stay in front of the camera.
How about for yourself? Any plans on producing and directing and doing some work in your own in that lane in the future?
I have 2 buddies of mine that we kind of like write comedy stuff because we're easy laughers. One of them is a writer, another one is an actor, comedian that I work with, and then I'm more the actor. And so we kind of did a couple of sketch comedy things. We'll probably get back to that. I'm actually supposed to see them on Friday. And we produce short form stuff. We have a little comedy group called The Craftsman that you can find some of our old stuff. The good thing was that all 3 of us got really busy, so we had to stop kind of making things because we had to take these opportunities. But I think that we're probably going to get back together and start making that kind of stuff. It would be, sketch comedy, YouTube videos and things like that, short form. These guys are really funny, and one of them's a great director. And so I'd love to get back to writing more stuff with them. But Craftsman with a K.
Craftsman with a K.
Yeah. Actually, Jay Ellis is in one of our things. You'll see him on there. It's on Instagram. Yeah.
So how do you cope here with being in the whole scene of acting? Because I know, as far as me when doing research about you, you've probably been one of the most open and honest actors that I've heard speak on going through the depression, especially after the whole Jeepers Creepers 2 and the premiere. So being now a veteran in this business, what would you say is the best way for an actor to cope with depression when he's first starting out, or even along the way here? What would you say is the best way to maintain your sanity?
Yeah, I think you need something else. You know what I mean? Like, I think my downfall was that I loved it so much that was all I did acting, talked about acting, taught acting, tried to be an actor, went and saw plays and stuff. And then when you feel like you're not invited to the party is when you can kind of get down. But if you can find something else, even as an artist, that you do that sort of fills you up, that's key, and it might be like, surfing or I don't surf, but it might be surfing. It might be playing basketball. It might be, going to, play music, going to concerts, like whatever it is. It's a funny thing as actors, you think, or as people, we think that those are kind of trivial, especially when you're like hunger and you're working on your acting. You're like, surfing, I'll do that when I'm done with my work, or I don't know, maybe you're into yoga. You're like, oh, I'll do that when I'm done with my work. I'll go play basketball. But I think as an actor and as an artist, that is part of your work. Like you need to do that stuff so that you can have fresh eyes. Like go to a concert, go hang out with your people, like learn some hobby to learn how to cook or do sourdough or whatever people were doing during the pandemic. Like that kind of stuff like helps you realize that there is a world bigger than acting, because actors are, I mean, we're self-absorbed. We're actors, but it's also weird. I mean, we are like, it's a weird thing because my hobby is my passion, it's my business, and it's my product, And so like, I'm trying to sell myself to get hired over here, but also like at my deepest core, it's everything that I want to be. So it's this weird thing. Like if I'm a painter, I can paint something, I can put it up for sale and I can be away from it, and even a musician, like the music goes through the instrument, but an actor it is them. And so when they don't want it, you don't get hired for a part or whatever, you get cut, from something, or you're, all the downfalls, it's you, it's constantly you. So I think if you can realize that there's something bigger than that, that helps out a lot. And then this probably is true for every industry. Like there's an unwritten agreement that the industry will work in this way. Like everybody knows you're going to audition a million times, not get the roles. The numbers are stacked against you. There's no rhyme or reason why they hire somebody or they don't hire somebody. You can take care of everything that you take care of. You can be great. You can work on your holes. You can work with colleagues who can, tell you, hey, you're doing this wrong. This is slipping, like dig in here, get better at this stuff. But at the end of the day, like it's always going to be out of your hands. And every morning that you wake up and you decide to be an actor, that that's the agreement that you're entering into. So if you're just honest with yourself and that's the way that the game works, and then you make the choice to go ahead and continue to play it, then that you're playing that game. So when the stuff comes your way, you can be like, all right, I did know that was an option. I knew that was what I was signing up for. And at any point, if you don't want to do it, don't. Like you can always check out. Hopefully you can pay your bills somehow. But I think that probably happens in other industries too. Like whether you admit it or not, the rules of the industry. And every morning that you wake up and you decide to continue to doing it, you're basically making an agreement with yourself and the pursuit that you're going after, that you'll accept the ups and downs of it. And if you don't want to do it, then no one's making you, So if I don't get a part or go somewhere else, I know that that's how the game works, and then maybe I go and I play basketball, or I go to a concert, or I do something, watch an easy comedy or something. And then just keep a short list of all the ways you can, get knocked down, and take them from your friends so that that they're possible. Every time somebody tells me a bad beat story, and I'm just like, all right, that can happen. That's one that can happen. And then lo and behold, a pandemic, an international worldwide pandemic happens. No one knew that was possible. There you go. I was working on The Flash for the CW recurring, and came back from Vancouver on March 6th, 2020, to like the creator and one of the directors slapping me on the back and being like, dude, we'll see you again soon.
Oh yeah, that's right. They told you basically that you got the part. And then
they were like, hey man, we're gonna bring you back. We don't care. We'll bring you back as a doppelganger. Like, you're great. And I was like, awesome. Hit the ground March 13th, 2020. Picked my kids up from school. Never heard from the Flash again. Who knew that could be one? Now I know that potentially a coronavirus could take over the world.
And we're still going through it. Unbelievable.
Yeah, definitely.
But man, Eric, is there anything else that you want to speak on that you have bringing up besides, I know Winning Time Season 2 is on the way, anything else?
Winning Time Season 2 is coming out, you know what I mean? I'll be out there. I'm always say that I pop up just enough to make you think that, we went to high school together. You think you know me, because I'm not that famous, but famous enough. No, I appreciate it, man. I really enjoyed talking to you, and all the questions were great. It got me to thinking about some things that I haven't thought about in a while, and I still love that hat. That's all.
I'm sure you'll be going deep here into the playoffs, man. I know the Mets they'll be out first round against the Padres. I guarantee it. They're frauds.
I hope so.
But man, how do you handle your October since you're not a horror movie guy? You just stick to comedies?
just stick to the comedies, man. Watch baseball, right? Watch
Baseball, yeah, baseball.
And get my daughter ready with her Halloween costume. And no, I won't be watching any horror movies this month.
Maybe put on Jeepers Creepers too if you see it on Sci-Fi.
I should watch it again, man. It was really good to revisit it. It definitely was. And that one, I know where all the jump scares are coming, so I don't have to worry about it.
Eric, though, I want to thank you for coming on the show here tonight, man. I had a great time talking with you, and you offered a lot of important insight on just your work and just what other actors may be going through in the world right now.
Thank you very much, man. I appreciate it. Appreciate you bringing me on. That was fun.
Of course. And they can follow you on Instagram and Twitter at Eric Nenninger.
Yep. Everything will be there at Eric Nenninger on Instagram. I don't do Twitter that much, but I still have the handle there. So, but yeah, everything's on Instagram there.
Yeah. Eric, anytime you have anything to promote, you're always welcome back on the show for sure.
Awesome, man. I appreciate it. And I'll be watching too. Congratulations to you.
I appreciate that.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Cool, man.
Enjoy the rest of your night. Take care and stay safe. All right.
Thanks, Max. You too.
Yep. Peace out, man.
See you, brother.